Minecarts are one of my favorite ways to travel in Minecraft, but let's be honest, they're kind of useless now. Boats, elytra, and Nether travel are all faster and all cheaper. But this wasn't always the case. Minecarts used to be the best way to move around. So what happened, and more importantly, how do we fix it? I will break down Minecraft travel tips, and I'll kind of explain why Minecarts have fallen behind, and I'll show you how multi-track carts could make them relevant again. To understand Minecarts, we have to first understand Minecraft's travel system as a whole. Travel falls into 3 stages: early stage, mid stage, and late game. The early game, if you're lucky enough to find a saddle, a horse, you can kind of give it for cheap. It has fast movement right away. Boats also help, but they're very limited to the water. Mid game is Nether portals. They unlock long distance shortcuts. 1 block here is equal to 8 in the overworld. This is why when you travel, the efficiency really kind of spikes. Late game, nothing really beats the ice boats or elytra with fireworks. They're just so efficient, and these methods are so fast that it kind of makes everything else kind of just look like a joke. So where do Minecarts fit with this? Right now, the answer is kind of nowhere. That's because they are way too expensive early, and when you finally get those materials, it's already kind of too late because you could use it for something else, right? It's way more efficient to go down a different path, and it's very performative. And unless you really want to do it, you're not going to make like a whole minecart system. But here's the thing, not all travel methods are equal. Some are kind of free roam, which are the horses, boats, and elytra. They give you complete control of anywhere you want to go. The other methods, which the minecart falls into, is actually the A to B. It's the Nether portals, the minecarts. It takes you passively from one fixed point to another. This is actually super interesting because it makes minecarts kind of have a natural niche. They're not supposed to compete with elytra speed, but they're kind of all about that passive, predictable transportation. You hop in, you kind of lean back, and then you arrive to where you planned. It's very unique, and it has value like no other method. So if minecarts became this niche, why are they not useful? And I think it's for a couple reasons. Rails are kind of expensive in the early game. You're spending a lot of iron on rails, and it kind of feels impossible to build. You need iron for armor, tools, buckets, anvils, everything else it would be better to use your iron for. And you don't have enough time to make the iron, make the rails in bulk, and take time building the road, which, by the way, you have to get more materials for. They are very slow, and I know that Minecraft kind of came up with that update where you can kind of update the game rule, but I'm just going to go with how the game intended it for its original state. Even with powered rails, minecarts kind of cap around 8 blocks per second. This is way behind horses, way behind ice boats, and especially elytra. They're inflexible as well, and you can only go where their rails are built already. This means there's a ton of setup for kind of little reward, especially if you have to travel very big places. It's just better if you do active travel. So right now, minecarts are decoration and not a real transportation system. This is where my fixes come in, and one of my ideas is a multi-track cart or junction rails. Imagine being able to lay parallel rails at a junction where you could press A or D and kind of like flip the track, or as it kind of like flies or whatever. So it's almost like the railway has its own network, which means you can kind of branch out into different paths and destinations without having to have this complicated redstone setups. And I know some people kind of get around it with using like levers and stuff, but you really don't want to have to like press a lever every time, and it has such a small hitbox. It's really not worth it, especially because it requires you to pay attention a lot, which is not the goal of having an efficient passive system. This makes minecarts actually kind of worth building because they're now scalable, and instead of just having a single boring line and having these really weird kind of connecting systems where you're going to have to kind of keep track of things, you can kind of have an entire network and have it more efficient to have different routes and different destinations. If you think about it, Nether portals also give you shortcuts. If you use them only for the fixed spots, however, elytras can give you speed, but only with the player input. So minecarts could become kind of like the go-to system for passive long distance travel once you set up a network in there, and it kind of works forever. I think something that's also interesting to talk about is there really is no passive way to have this mass storage moving. Most of the time when you move stuff, you're going to use stuff like donkeys, or you're just going to have to go from point A to point B, or you're going to use shulker boxes, which shulker boxes are kind of like the backpacks and like extensions of stuff. You can put them in chests, and specifically what I mean for that is I would like there to be a way for you to connect your carts together, right? Use chains to connect carts, because I assume the carts are kind of like the minecarts like train system or whatever, right? Literally just make a system where you can kind of clip the carts together. They kind of work like a lead, And then you could build a network where you can have all these carts kind of travel together so you can have an easy way of transporting things. This will also help minecarts kind of be a little bit more useful in like redstone as well. I'm personally not very good at redstone, but I can only imagine how much purposes that could, make. So there's a lot of room for improvement. Minecarts are not broken. I just feel like they're personally a little outdated. The game has grown around them and they're one of my favorite modes of transportation. And I think a few changes could make a very, very big difference. Multi-track systems would solve inflexibility problems. Storage minecarts will solve logistical problems, and new functions could be a great tool for automation. Minecarts will not replace elytra. They won't replace anything new or important, but they are the backbone of reliability, of passivity, and they could really make your world something that's better to explore. It's a niche that I believe is worth building upon, and it's why Minecraft is kind of the game that is worth playing, and I hope it gets an update.